So welcome everybody. I'm Sita Huber and I'm a functional medicine nutritionist, and I do find myself often needing to explain what functional medicine nutrition is. It's different than regular nutrition, and we're not, I'm not looking at weight loss or calories or that sort of thing. I mean, those things exist and they're relevant and we have to consider them and talk about them. But what I'm more interested in is what food's doing to the body, and then looking at the body's symptoms and saying, how is food part of that symptom profile? How is food impacting this person's health? And some of what we're going to talk about and go through is not necessarily, it's almost like counterintuitive, because there are so many perceived healthy foods that in fact are not that good for the body. And so when we're going through talking about inflammation today, how to fight inflammation with food, what we're going to be talking about are fine-tuning the way that we eat and really understanding, going beyond what we perceive as healthy and looking, well, what's that food actually doing? And is it helping fight inflammation for us? So I'm going to share my screen with you now so that you guys can see my slides. And okay, so here we go. Today's webinar, we are talking about inflammation. We're going to explain what inflammation is for those of you who are just sort of hearing this word going, nice word, what is it? We're also going to talk about how inflammation is contributing to disease. So what is it about inflammation that, why am I saying it's contributing to cancer and to hormone imbalance and to all these things that can be going on in the body? Because that's a pretty big statement to be making, and so we need to understand how that is actually happening. What are the symptoms of inflammation? Do you have inflammation? As soon as we start talking about stuff, if you're like me, especially in my early sort of health days, everything anyone said, I was like, oh my God, that's me, that's me, that's me. So what we're going to do is look at some of the symptoms, and you can have a look at that and then sort of understand what level of inflammation might be happening. Everyone is going to be different, of course. And, our genetics make a difference, as well as our diet and our lifestyle make a difference in how inflammation is going to impact us in the first place. Not every thing affects everyone the same. How we can use food then to reduce inflammation. So this is a really powerful thing. There are beautiful herbs and herbal medicines that can also help with reducing inflammation, but I want to focus on your diet, because for me, this is the first place that it's almost like what we've missed in medicine is we have focused on, well, what can we make and what can we do to fix this? And it's like, well, what are we eating? Food is just, the most valuable, most powerful tool that we've got, that we're eating every single day. And unless we are educating ourselves, like in this sort of platform, and thank you all for being here and for putting this time aside to do this. I know that this is a lot for you to be taking on, and it'd be a lot easier just go buy a bottle of something and fix that symptom and fix that inflammation, but it doesn't work that way. So your education is your most powerful tool. Your food is a powerful tool. And so thank you for being here and letting me do what I love doing, which is educate and empower you. So then I'm going to give you, I've got 15 of my top inflammatory foods. Of course, I couldn't keep that list to 10 because there are so many good anti-inflammatory foods. And I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a starting point here so that you can walk away today with, okay, great, I'm going to start eating those foods. I'm going to implement these diet and lifestyle tips, and I'm going to start healing this inflammation. It's a long journey. We don't heal overnight. Nobody heals overnight. You have your body for life. Your body's going to keep changing. And so what you start today, you're just going to keep building on it. Okay, so inflammation, what it is, it's the body's natural defense via the release of special cells called cytokines. And these cytokines go out and they basically mop up and attack and clean up damaged cells. So they're quite active and vigorous when you do release these cytokines. They are on a mission to clean up debris, to bring healing. They send all these, once the cytokines are released, it's never just one thing. There's all these other messages and messengers that go along to, in an acute situation, they're going to an injury and then they're causing swelling, they're causing redness, but that's all the healing that they're bringing. So the message is from the cytokine. And then these are, the cytokines can be triggered by a virus or a bacteria, any kind of foreign invader in the body. And this is the really important thing. And this is the link right here between inflammation in food because some of our food has been so tampered with. The body is viewing it as a foreign invader. So by eating the wrong foods, we're actually setting up the immune system to have this inflammatory response. Okay, so where the immune system is designed to go in and remove these things, what if we're eating something every day that triggers this inflammatory immune response? That's called chronic or long-term inflammation. And then alongside that, we're changing the behavior of the immune system. And we are influencing this by our lifestyle. So of course, then stress is also a factor. So it's what we eat. It's what we eat. It's how we think and feel. It's our emotions and how we're processing our emotions. And all of this is influencing our chemistry that is then driving or responding to this inflammation. And the problem is, if we're eating, we're going to go over what these foods are, but if we're eating inflammatory foods, guaranteed you have some level of chronic inflammation happening in the body. And there are different grades that can be happening. And some people have a really strong constitution and they can eat the crappiest diet and that inflammation is barely going to affect them. And then you've got someone else who's super sensitive, who responds to the lowest level of that low-grade inflammation and their whole system's out because of it, okay? That's me. And a lot of my patients as well. So when you're that kind of sensitive person, you are going to be reactive and responding to a lot more than what normal people are. And like I said, it's counterintuitive because a lot of the things that we think are healthy are not actually that healthy, unfortunately. So how does inflammation then create disease? So it's this overly reactive immune system effectively irritating the whole body from the inside out. So I think of it like, just this inflammation with all these cytokines. They're active, they're vigorous, they're doing a big job, they're going and disrupting and cleaning stuff and attacking things, right? So that's a lot to be happening in the body. So the body is sensing that. The body is like, okay, whoa, there's a lot going on. And then the body is flooded with these defense cells and hormone messaging. So I go into all this hormone communication stuff more in my online programs, the Mind Body Reset, which is a 37-day program, and then the 10-day mindful detox. So I go into stuff a little bit more in depth in there. But basically, hormones are controlling the communication throughout the whole body. So it's not just about your sex hormones. It's not just about the things that we think are associated with hormones. That very presence of cortisol or insulin is having an impact on everything else. So it's one holistic body. The whole body is communicating and responding to everything that's happening in the body. So you can't isolate anything. It's just one organism right here. So this influx, and it causes damage to tissues over time. So what happens is that this inflammation just sort of keeps breaking things down. It's like overly breaking things down. You can end up with reduced collagen. So cortisol will break down collagen over time. You'll get thinner skin. You'll get premature aging. All of these things. That's at the visible level. On a internal level, we're changing the messaging. Okay, so this is going to disrupt immune function. It will, disrupt periods. It will impede rather than promote repair. So that short-term inflammation is meant to bring messages and messengers and all of these like wonderful little immune things that are going to clean stuff up and then promote healing. But then when those messengers keep going, they're disruptive. So then repair is impeded. That's how we get disease, because without healing, so healing happens when we sleep, healing happens when inflammation is calmed down, so we get our burst of inflammation, then it calms down, and healing happens when we're in a restful state. And we, right now in modern days, we are missing a lot of these healing times. And if we're in a constant aggravated inflammatory state within the body because we're being exposed to things that are constantly irritating us, then we are not giving ourselves time for healing. That's the only reason that we get disease, because the body can actually deal with cancer cells. The body can deal with foreign invaders. The body is designed to heal. But if we're taking away the way that the body heals the best, then that's where the problem is. So this is why we need to become conscious of this, and we need to understand it so that we can start to make changes. This is how we get empowered. So the diseases associated with inflammation. So there's a whole spectrum of them. I guess like in recent research, we're really looking at things like Parkinson's, and we're looking at we're also looking at dementia and Alzheimer's as, you know, a type 3 kind of diabetes, where this sort of excess carbohydrate is attacking the brain in an inflammatory way. We're also, of course, cancers and these sorts of things. There's always a low-grade inflammation, as well as depression. This is such a big one, and this is where the whole basic serotonin theory and the whole theory behind depression really needs to be coupled with what we're understanding now about inflammation and what that's doing to our health. Because if there's chronic inflammation in the body, you're going to have a lower mood. Depression is a symptom of inflammation. So this is really, really important, especially because a lot of people are being medicated with pharmaceuticals and not addressing the inflammation that's happening in the body and not making the really, really important lifestyle changes that we can make. Skin things and skin eruptions, those are a sign of inflammation that's happening already in the body. So it's happening within the body, and it's getting louder and louder, and it's breaking through on the skin because that inflammation is reactive, right? So when your skin's reactive, there's something reactive going on within your body that matches that. Irritable bowel as well. And just going to share with you, I was diagnosed with irritable bowel like 3 times over 5 years. Every time I went in and said my gut was upset, I just got that diagnosis, which I did have like the common investigations and stuff. And anyway, so this is a really common thing. And as I learned, this was years ago, and as I learned and studied this nutrition and started to understand the connections between everything, which took a while because it's a big picture stuff that we're trying to understand, and not a lot of medical people understand it. So I felt really alone. But I started to be able to make the connection between my back pain and my gut symptoms. And I had chronic back pain and sciatica for 7 years. I had gut symptoms that whole time. So anytime I have a client who has gut symptoms, I'm like, how's your back? Or if they have back symptoms, I'm like, how's your gut? Because there was a direct connection between inflammation in the gut and inflammation that was spreading to the nerves and causing and inflaming that minor back problem that then became worse because of intolerance to gluten. So of everything, I went off dairy, thought I was eating really healthy, eating beans and grains and rice and all these things that were healthy. And it wasn't until I went gluten-free and eventually grain-free has really, I don't pain anymore. So it's amazing what a difference that's made. And that was just getting rid of the underlying gut inflammation that was contributing to pain. So if you guys have those symptoms or those things we eat, this is why this is so important for you to be understanding this more. So I just want to show you guys what foods are contributing to inflammation. So the visuals, we understand what these foods are. The thing is that I know that most of us think that we eat these foods sometimes, and until you sort of start working on your diet and working with me or being told to eat a particular way, it's eye-opening anyways, okay? Because we often think that we eat a certain way, and then when we look at it, it can be quite different. So sugar and refined carbohydrates, they are contributing to, we'll look at this in the next slide, but they are signaling insulin. And so we need insulin to uptake sugar and carbohydrates, all of them. And the hormone insulin then has an inflammatory effect that on its own, in small amounts, is probably not that bad. But then when we add vegetable and seed oils, which are super inflammatory, so I'm talking about cottonseed oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, things included in there, canola, safflower oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, you know, all these oils that we have been told are heart healthy and good for us are all industrial. They have been manufactured when there wasn't enough butter or enough olive oil or whatever, and they have been sold to us as a healthy alternative, but they are not. They're fragile. They should not be refined. They have to be deodorized. They go through like 8 different processes. It's not good for oils to go through all those processes. When those oils get into your body, they go into your cells and they create cells because we have a phospholipid bilayer in each cell. So when you eat these industrial vegetable seed oils that are damaged effectively, they go into your cell and then you have damaged cells. And then you have a big immune problem, because it's like we're starting a fire in the body with carbohydrates and oils, and then these chemical foods and genetically modified foods all irritating the body in some way. And then all those little smoldering flames of inflammation become one big flame, one big fire within the body. And this can get really out of hand. And then this is how we end up with people eating healthy diets with cancer and with heart disease. And it's not that surprising, because if we're following typical advice, then we're going to be eating these foods that we're told are fine for us. Now, so processed foods, genetically modified foods, and wheat being a particular one. This is why so many people are gluten intolerant. You don't have to be celiac to be gluten intolerant. Celiac is one form of gluten intolerance, but there's also non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where people, it's almost like has like a psychotropic effect, gluten, and it can affect people's minds, it can affect inflammation. And of course, the chemicals that are in foods that have been passed, and a lot of them are safe, but then, with things like Roundup and Monsanto, we're now finding out like a lot of these things that we've been consuming and are exposed to are in fact carcinogens, or, at the very worst, or, at the very least, hormone disruptors. So they are, the presence of these chemicals changes the messages that happen in the body. So don't start freaking out right now, because the thing is that there's a whole food industry that makes good food, and your job is to steer clear of these things, okay? To get rid of inflammation in the body, you need to stop eating these foods, avoid them, move away from them, reduce your carbohydrates, reduce your sugar. Avoid industrial vegetable oils as much as you can. Like you might eat out once and you might eat them once, but just don't buy them and don't put them in your home. Minimize your exposure to them. And if you're going through healing, be more diligent. So this is when you do need to shop 100% organic. If you're trying to heal, you do need to avoid these things really specifically. So, and that's where working with someone like myself is important to help you navigate it. Most of my clients that do my programs and who work with me, learning about it is one thing, but then the really tricky part is going out to the grocery store, going out for dinner, or going to Nana's house, and what do you say and how do you navigate this? You have to become educated with this stuff so that it becomes less stressful. So fanning the flames of inflammation. So now this is a little bit of I just want to branch into the stress factor, because stress is such an important factor when we're talking about inflammation, because stress and cortisol, the cortisol is the main stress hormone, that in itself is inflammatory, okay? So a lot of us are under stress and we're already inflamed. Then the very presence of insulin is inflammatory. Insulin suppresses lipolysis, which is fat burning, and and secretion of aromatizing hormones, so it changes your estrogen and testosterone and DHEA, and glycation. So glycation is the breakdown of collagen and breaking down things. So the very presence of insulin is inflammatory. It's breaking stuff down, it's stopping fat burning, and it's promoting fat storage. So right here we have a double whammy. We've got cortisol coupled with high insulin. So we're eating we're stressed out and we're eating a high carbohydrate food and having a high demand for insulin in the body. So we're promoting fat storage, first of all, and then we're also promoting inflammation. So guaranteed when someone is overweight, there's also inflammation there, which is the thing that I care about more. This is why I'll never do weight loss with people. I'll take your inflammation down, and that will solve the weight problem anyways. That's my philosophy on it. And less eating disorders that way too. So these hormones are then further impacting the thyroid, DHEA, contributing to imbalances such as estrogen dominance, which we see a lot now in both men and women. And there's more information on that. I've got a mindful hormones education kit on my website if you're interested in estrogen dominance, or if periods are a thing for you. There's an education kit you can buy in the shop. Inflammation, the double whammy. So here, just a visual for you guys. So we've got stress and we've got high insulin. And then we've got these two inflammatory processes. And then we're fueling the flames within the body of inflammation. And we're also fueling the body with, if you remember the previous slide, we've got high sugar and high refined carbohydrates. And then we've also got processed food. And what was the other one? and then the vegetable oils. So we've got those things all happening. So there's a lot going against our bodies right now. This is a great quote by Eric Latz, sorry, not Eric, director of the Institute of Immunity at the University of Bonn. So the human immune system responds to a fast food Western lifestyle the same way it would to a bacterial or viral infection. This is why this is inflammatory. And so, you know, someone who's working in immunology is going, oh my God, people's bodies are just attacking their own, like food is the foreign invader. It's crazy, right? So let's do something about it. Symptoms of inflammation, insomnia, big one, because when your liver is overloaded, when your liver is inflamed, when your liver is dealing with all these toxins and all of these stressors and all of these inflammatory things going through the liver, and the liver has a high need for antioxidants, so it's going to be burning through all that in an inflamed state. Insomnia is a major one, so a major flag for people. So if you have insomnia, something to consider. It's not just about taking something to make you sleep. It's like, well, how's your blood sugar through the day? Are you eating an inflammatory diet or an anti-inflammatory diet? Joint pain and stiffness, of course, this builds up over time, and that's a sign of inflammation right there. It's localized inflammation building up in one place. Of course, headaches, brain fog, any sort of that general fatigue, that can be inflammation that's happening in the body. It's like a byproduct of those toxins. Period pain. If you're getting really painful periods, that can be estrogen dominance. And it's also it's saying that these inflammatory pathways are being fueled. So there's more inflammation. Your hormones and the types of hormones that you have are the more inflamed hormones, basically. Depression, like I mentioned before, if that is you, and if you're on medications for depression, I'd love you to reach out because I can provide you with some information. And of course, doing my program is where you learn a lot about the resources that I've got, and then the diets that are going to help support you. Okay, so it's not about just stopping all medication. You have to obviously taper these things and bring in the healthy, clean lifestyle and support healing in the body over time. Okay, and then that eventually gets you into a place where you're like, okay, you're coping on your own, and that's, you know, that's promoting the body's healing. Fatigue, frequent sickness, so low immunity. So if you're constantly inflamed, it's affecting the immune system. That's a warning sign. Skin eruptions and acne, so eczema, psoriasis, acne, all of these inflamed skin conditions, they can either be just like an overload of toxic overload, like with acne and hormonal imbalance, but also an immune switch that happens. So you've got there's different parts of the immune system that can dominate. And when you get eczema and psoriasis, there's been a switch that's happened. Digestive complaints, like I explained before what happened with me. And of course, the link there to chronic pain. All right, great. So we're going to talk about foods that fight inflammation. So this is the fun part. And this is what I want you guys to start loving doing. Love food. Just like get totally into food, nerd out on food, nerd out on yummy, high fat, wholesome cold pressed oils and just good food, and start being creative with like, okay, what's the junk food that I like and how can I get that in a healthy version? Okay. And that's why I make as many recipes as I can. I always wish I could do more recipes for you guys, but there are some on my website. So jump on and get free resources there. There's an ebook, the Beauty Fuel ebook, that's a free download when you register to my newsletter. So if you want to do that, and yeah, so you just have to stay connected to good information, and look, the food is the fun part. Okay, so everything I talked about just then was quite serious, and now we're just looking at some really beautiful foods. Okay, and we have to find a way to make these all taste amazing so that we can that's how we make this doable. That's how we make this lifestyle doable. It has to be fun. You have to want to do it. You have to like it. Olive oil, one of my absolute favorite ingredients. I go on and on about olive oil, and I really miss Australian olive oil now that I'm here in Canada. But olive oil is like a number one that I want you guys to be cooking with. I want you to pour it on your salads. I don't really have an upper limit of what I recommend for olive oil, but usually I recommend at least a 1/4 cup of olive oil a day, or a few tablespoons added to every meal, even smoothies. Ginger is another wonderful, it's has a very specific anti-inflammatory action, but it also regulates blood sugar, supports digestion and immunity. So ginger is really good. It's been used traditionally for a long time. Avocado, of course, avocado. It's a perfect high fiber, high fat, low sugar food. So perfect for your blood sugar. It's also high in healthy monounsaturated fats. It's got different types of vitamin E in it. It's got your polyphenols and antioxidants. And so it is, you know, just genuinely a superfood. Eating avocado and having those type of fats and that fiber is, of course, anti-inflammatory. High omega-3. So we know that omega-3s are good for us. And you know, for years and years, we were told to sort of like I know this is one of the first bits of health information I got was eat more omega-3s. And yes, you need fats, but it was mostly focused on omega-3s. But we actually need all those good fats. So we do need olive oil, we need coconut oil, we need butter, we need animal fats, and we need all these fats. And then we also need omega-3s. And omega-3s, the EPA, there's EPA and DHA in omega-3 fish oil and kind of fish oil. Actually, there's omega-3 in grass-fed meats as well as in eggs. So you will get it in nuts and seeds. So you will get it in other foods than just sardines. But the EPA is particularly anti-inflammatory, and I put people on high-dose omega-3 EPA for joint pain and for getting rid of inflammation in the early days, just to sort of switch that. But sardines are the lowest of mercury of the fatty fish. Pumpkin seeds are great. They're alkaline forming, so they're high in minerals, they're high in zinc, they're high in protein. So they're really wonderful food for fighting inflammation with that profile. Blueberries, of course, are high in antioxidants and specifically anthocyanins. So really good for the brain, really anti-cancerous. Also promote insulin sensitivity, meaning that you don't need to produce as much insulin because you're more responsive to what you are making, which is good. Kale is rich in carotenoids as well as glucosinolates for phase 2 liver detox, and quercetin, which helps with mast cell stabilization. So those cruciferous vegetables like kale and broccoli and cauliflower and broccoli sprouts and Brussels sprouts, these are all, you know, really rich in the bok choy as well, in those sorts of ingredients. But kale has a particularly good profile. So I know we're all kind of sick of like kale, the superfood, but kale is really good. Turmeric activates a specific NRF2 pathway, so it's actually as good as a Nurofen or ibuprofen when it's in the right biochemical form, so more of a sort of pharmaceutical nutraceutical, so not just the powdered turmeric, but you can take the active curcuminoids from turmeric and actually make a painkiller that's as good as ibuprofen. Okay, so I want you guys to know that. I want you to find it and get it, because you shouldn't be taking any ibuprofen. It wrecks your gut. And it also supports phase 2 liver detox. So I use turmeric a lot when there's estrogen dominance or when I want to bring down inflammation in the whole body. It works amazingly, but I use it as a supplement, not just a food. Brussels sprouts are anti-inflammatory. They contain a compound called sulfur, as well as indole-3 carbinol, which is really great for the liver, anti-cancerous, anti-inflammatory in so many different ways. Dark chocolate is, you know, I always like to put, because chocolate is actually so good for us, but it's the dark raw cacao that doesn't have the sugar added to it. And so you can put chocolate in your smoothies, you can have it for breakfast, you can eat as much chocolate as you want, but don't add sugar. And it's a good source of antioxidants as well as alkalizing minerals like magnesium. Things that are alkalizing are going to help to reduce acidity in the body, and then that is going to be anti-inflammatory as well. Reishi mushroom in particular, although all fungi, contain a range of medicinal and anti-inflammatory compounds. So amazing research on mushrooms for support with chemotherapy, as well as protecting the brain, as well. Just so many, and boosting the immune system. Mushrooms are absolutely amazing. So those are also anti-inflammatory. What you find is that things have multiple activities. And anti-inflammatory is a specific activity. So it's like helping stop those cytokines, helping stop that explosion of, mast cells and reactivity that's happening in the body. But these are also going to have multiple effects because we're talking about food. So they do multiple things. So it might be nootropic is a word for that's something that's good for your brain. And that's mushrooms have that. And then, you know, antifungal or antibacterial or antiviral. Those are other properties, okay? Just so you understand a bit what I'm talking about. But I put butter on here because butter contains butyrate, and butyrate is a powerful anti-inflammatory, and it feeds the gut bacteria. Gut bacteria love it. So it's anti-inflammatory in the gut and it's really calming to the heart. So it actually stops sort of inflammation in the heart. So butyrate is an amazing antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. Collagen powder I've put as well because collagen's made when particular amino acids are activated with vitamin C, and then they make collagen, and then that's how you get your skin, and you know, and those, it forms like a protein compound in the body. But when you take collagen as a supplement, like an animal or a marine collagen or plant collagen, then you're actually stopping the effects of glycation, which is the thing that happens that breaks down from high insulin. So by taking collagen, you're reducing the negative impact of sugar. And then bone broth as well contains a specific amino acid glycine that reduces gut inflammation and fuels the muscle fibers and helps them heal within the gut in particular. Seaweed is another amazing one where there's really just incredible research about these sort of aqueous vegetables, and they contain so many alkalizing minerals as well as all these like special little ingredients. They're called phytonutrients when they come from plants, and they're not really necessary in the body, but then they can be super, super beneficial. So these are all things that you guys can go out and start getting curious about and be like, okay, she told me to get collagen powder. How do I use that? She told me to get seaweed. How do I use that? There are so many good recipes if you take these ingredients and start looking stuff up. I want to show you what an anti-inflammatory diet looks like. So I absolutely love the way that I eat. I love teaching people how to eat like this. I love food. I don't like deprivation. I don't like going without. I always find a way to make something really yummy, healthy. And yeah, and this is the possibility that I want to show to you guys. So an anti-inflammatory diet is high in good fats. So you're actually eating a lot more fat than what you might have been told to eat in the past. We do that in my program, in the Mindful Detox. We start with a little introduction to keto. I don't get people on all keto, or I don't get people on all paleo or all Mediterranean or all anything. I'm really bringing you the middle ground, and I want to show you, expose you to the different therapeutic diet principles so that then you can choose what works and feels right for you. And this is my method. So, and it does work for people, because all of a sudden you're like, okay, I don't have to follow a diet. I can take a bit of that and a bit of that. So an anti-inflammatory diet is much higher in fats than what you would think, but it's the good fats. It's not those industrial oils that I do before. It's also low in sugar and carbohydrates. You don't have to eat no carbohydrates, but you really need to manage your carbohydrate intake, balance out your glycemic load and your blood sugar, because we have to manage insulin. We cannot just have constant insulin spikes throughout the day. If we are doing that, we are becoming inflamed. No processed foods. So I would not, there's a lot of things you can pay me to eat that other people probably love eating, and you can wean yourself off all those things, and I much prefer to make a real version. And I view desserts as a nutrition top-up, like what nutrients can I get out of my dessert? It should still be good for you. And gluten and GMO free. So gluten is inflammatory. Genetically modified foods are inflammatory. Chemicals are inflammatory. We want to avoid all those as much as we can. Of course, it's high in plants and fiber. And, this is where I don't buy into like a keto diet. A lot of them are advertised, and keto diets work, and there's a therapeutic aspect to it, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat plants and fiber, because plants have so many amazing anti-cancerous, healing, anti-inflammatory properties. And so we need that too. And it's not just about weight loss. It's way too much focus on that in nutrition. So so you have to use good quality animal products. You can eat meat, but you need to buy good quality meat. You need to care about what happened to your animal. You need to care about what your animal ate. And then you need to eat smaller amounts of meat, because you should really be eating more plants. And the meat is your super dense nutrition that's really giving you that top up as part of, just boosting your diet. And then it's also low in dairy, so we don't need to eat a lot of dairy. If you're going to eat dairy, it would preferably be sheep or goat, or small batch, artisan style cheeses. And there may be a period of time I take a lot of people off dairy completely in the Mind Body Reset, and that's so that we can bring inflammation down, reset the body, and then you start to reintroduce foods, and everyone's got a different way that, what works for them. So thank you so much. I had so much information there to tell you guys, so hopefully I wasn't talking too fast. And I now just want to leave with telling you about the Mindful Detox. I mentioned this a few times. I've got one coming up, so you can look on my website, mindbodyiq.com, and you can have a look at the next dates for the Mindful Detox. So this is a 10-day program with 2 days of prep. This is an introduction to keto and intermittent fasting. So this is how to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. It's a 10-day meal plan. It includes recipes. It includes 2 webinars like this, 2 videos where I go through the guidebook and explain things. You've got a shopping list. You've got lots of extra content plus lifestyle content, because then we also are addressing stress, because I don't just want to tell you guys how to eat. There's no point if you're still stressed out and you just are never stopping and not slowing down and not giving your body that time to heal. We have to bring our nervous system down to encourage and promote healing as well. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been really, really great to share this information.